On.
What do you say, Pat?
Are we going to have a class on the on-off switches?
have one.
I call it a new level of transparency, and I can run it.
The best part is you saw my head during the whole thing right here.
Dennis, we have 3:30. Would you like to start, please?
Okay. I don't know if I really need to go through all the pages each time, but we go back to the last of the colored pages. Last week, all the action we did actually raised the county-wide levies 1 penny. We'll go clear to the back one. Go right on through them to the back sheet. Is that it? Nope. Go to January 23rd. There you go. Okay, we actually went up a penny, and in the rural we went down 3 cents. Okay, we approved the paramedic funding. We funded soil conservation out of low-cost sales tax, and reduced the sheriff's administration by $2,500, and reduced veterans assistance by $5,000. So the net result is as you see in green. So from when we first started, we're still 11 cents above in general, or 11 cents above in the countywide, and we're 36 down in the rural levies, which is countywide plus rural basic.
Mr. J.
Yes, sir.
That includes health insurance. Sorry about the voice. That includes the health insurance, 5%.
It's still in here.
And what does that constitute as far as levy roughly? If we were to go down to something that wasn't 5%,
I think,
something like 0.
I actually don't have that with me. I do have the numbers upstairs, but it's going to be around 150,000, 170 countywide. And we are going to have that on the agenda next week.
Okay.
Discuss the health insurance going from 5% to 0. Melissa is putting stuff together.
Okay.
Figures to show that we're ahead right now, even after we spend this claims today, we're ahead about 600,000 over last year. So there really is a need to go with the health insurance, but she's going to put some numbers together and verify it. I already talked to her. So.
And that would equal maybe 3 more cents?
Huh?
Is that about 3 more cents?
Oh, probably 2, 3. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And we'll have broke down by fund how to affect each fund, because then we'll have to go back and all the line items for health insurance.
Okay.
But that's on some of my projected suggestions. That's one of them. So I do have that upstairs. I can tell you each fund how much it's going to go down. I think general basic is 129,000. I think general sup, I recollect that's around 28,000. Then your rural basic, then your other funds really don't matter because they're all either region or they're secondary roads. Okay. We cut secondary roads, that affect anything because you just reallocate some money. So,
thank you.
So overall, so far, in our total cuts, we have cut approximately about 370,000 so far. But we got some major stuff coming up where it could reduce it even quite a bit further. Different funding mechanisms, things like that. Okay.
All right. Next is county attorney. Is this where we got sideways then?
I guess so.
Josh in there.
Is the sheriff's office trying to go to the jail? Yes. Okay, yeah. Does it matter if they get out of order here a little bit? Okay.
County sheriff is going to be C1, and it's page 10 to 12.
You want to wait? I can.
We can ask PJ here. What's that?
Well, if we only got the one thing, we want to go through that real quick.
You want to go through the jail first?
Yes, that's what was serious.
Very good.
Thanks for asking.
When you're ready, young man.
I think we stopped last week because of line 1016. There was a question about the amount that was.
Correct. And that can be explained there. Michelle's gone through a lot of work on this. It's actually moving people from court security, making them sergeants into the jail. Yeah, go ahead and pass that out. So the net result between all the shifting and everything, there's about a $49,000, I think, increase, which is the 2.75%, and the union contracts.
But is that increase reflected in these numbers right now in total? So it's not,
They're right in
Thank you.
here.
Okay.
We're just explaining why there's a big increase.
Yeah, yeah.
So where the decrease was. So pretty much self-balance itself out. Michelle can talk about it here a little bit.
Thank you.
So this is just showing the CWA corrections group according to how we budgeted for the personnel. And I think the one in question was 1016, which you'll see in fiscal year 18, it was 288,000 and went up to 535,000. At the bottom, you'll see kind of the notes of significance. In fiscal year 19, there's 9 individuals in that group as opposed to 5 in fiscal year 18, and that's because there were 4 sergeants authorized July of 2017 and 4 jailers were deauthorized. So you'll see the money kind of move around because of that. So you'll see some negatives there in the 1014 categories. The second line there, you'll see the differences. And then the first line in the second section down at the bottom there. But you'll see the total for the corrections group at the bottom actually only increased by $50,000 when you look at the whole of it. Do you have any questions about that page?
Now, what action you did take, if there are any questions, there's one action you did take last week that wasn't acted on. That's 1023 jail action sergeants. We're going to drop 11,960 on that, make it 0 with the consent of, the sheriff's office agreeing to it. They did, but we didn't officially act on that because we dropped the whole thing till this week.
I'll move to receive that minus the 11,960.
second.
You received the whole budget?
Minus the 11,960.
Okay, maybe we should have some explanation on that ACH, because there is a little bit of confusion there. We budgeted $998 this year. That is the basic contract. That did not include the $250,000 contingency. We went through this. I don't know if it was you or someone.
No, it was
With
Sheriff and Major Wenger.
yeah, that does not include the $998. So
Where are you at?
we're on line item 2915 on page 11. And figuring out what they said so far, we're going to be short a little bit in that line item because they are spending some of that contingency. So when we talk about a refund back to the county, we actually haven't given them the $250,000. They're drawing down on it, but we never budgeted.
Why didn't we budget it?
I do not know. That's the number I was given. The $998 was a contract.
I thought in talking to Sheriff Drew that there was something like 180 out of that 250,000. Is it come again?
Left over that hasn't been touched or will be touched.
The last amount I heard, it was 106,000 that was left, and we've
Okay.
still got 3 months to go.
Okay.
But we haven't actually advanced in that actual 250. They're drawing it down on that line item as they go along. So that refers back to the new year here, the $1,050,000. That too, again, doesn't cover the $250,000. That's an estimate of the contract was a percent increase. I think 3% was it?
Yes.
3% increase. So I just want to make the board aware that we thought we were going to get money back. That's not really true because we haven't advanced the contingency to them. If we'd have given them the $250,000, they were drawing down on it, and they didn't spend it all, we'd get it back. But that isn't the case the way I was told. 998 is the basic contract.
So where are we at right now in real time, fiscal year to date? We're at a pace, I believe. We're on a pace to go over $1 million. But see, that includes that. We're at 516,000 right now. That's through 7 months. That does not include any claims that could potentially be in there today on the day run. I don't know how many's in there. But if you take that divided by 7 times 12, you'll come to over $1 million. Because we're spending more than what the budget has because we're taking contingency money out there that wasn't put into the budget.
So where do you need us to be?
What?
Where do we need to be?
Where do we need to be? To say we're getting the money back, we should have probably given the $250,000. They run a bank account, but instead of doing that, they're actually billing us for what is extra over and above what
monthly fee they charge.
Divided by 7 times 12 is 884,000.
Okay, then they're gonna be right on there. So their expenses must be a little less, even though we're taking part of the contingency money out. So any money that's under that 998 will be money that's left over. I know that 250 isn't embedded in that 998. That was a base number, the 250. The way Mr. Winkler was showing me is it was not in there. So it isn't like we're gonna get money back because we never got the money in.
Right, but not right now, we may be more than 100.
Yeah, we might have 100,000 left in the line item. Yes.
Right.
And that's possible.
So I guess my only question is, do we need to go up 52,000 more if we're on schedule not to even get near 150,000 of that top max? I mean, yeah, if you were saying that we're over $1 million, okay, but we're not right now. We're not scheduled to go over $1 million. We're scheduled to be at 884. So if you're saying we're scheduled to go at 884 and we're right now at 998, I don't see a reason to go up to $1,050,000.
I think they got the $1,050,000 by taking 3% times 998. That's what's in the contract. But they are spending. You're right. They are spending. So why would we go another 50?
So if you took 3% times what we're estimated we'll be at now, that would be more realistic. Would you say it was 8?
If it runs that
884.
5 months.
Yeah, if it,
But even if we got back to 988, we cut the 51,613 off. And leave it 988 for next year.
I wouldn't mind doing that just because we don't have the 250 built in, but this gives us at least a little buffer, right? Where if we're at 884 and we leave it at 998, at least we've got a 112 roughly programmed in there. That's almost half of the 250. I don't see a need to budget more and tax more for something that we're not.
and your 516 is right up to date, correct?
Yes. Not including any claims of day or day. I don't know if there's any in there today or not.
So we just go 999 even?
That's fine.
So we're not changing the motion on anything?
No, it died for lack of a second, and I'll just.
No, Taylor got it.
Oh, you did? So, okay.
Something that
I'll
sounded
move
like
to
Mr. Red
amend.
got the second. I
It
think.
was.
Cut a 51,000.
Was there anything else there, Dennis, on this that?
No.
I thought it was just the one item. So.
I don't know if you want to go through each line items or.
Well, we'd done all the line items the other day, and I didn't remember this one being brought up. I'll move to amend to remove 51,000 from line item 2915 as well.
So you're going to go 999 even?
Yeah.
So Dennis, what's the bottom line then on the,
51,000, and you have what, 11,000?
960.
So 62,960. So we'd have to vote on.
3,573. That's leaving the 998, 387 the same for next year.
I just made it 999.
Okay, that's fine.
So it'd be 62,960.
Yep.
I guess if there's a second.
so you're going to receive the budget released
Second.
by that?
Yep, second.
Motion by Red.
I have a question unless we already covered this. There's 3 line items that refer to if we hire 8 correctional officers, correct? In regards to safety apparel, jail, school, and radios combined, it's a $16,000 increase. Is my understanding correct that the sheriff's office is this year not requesting those?
We weren't hiring in March of this year under this current budget, but I don't know if it's clear yet as to when there's a possibility that they may need to be hired if we follow through with the intake.
Can we bring those items back for a wrap-up? What were they all there, Matthew?
2915, or sorry, 2940, 4220, and 4460.
So you're thinking these are equipment for employees that we don't have?
Right. If we're in fact not going to hire the next fiscal year, then that's why it was
We're
increased.
budgeting the cost of what it was going to take to staff the intake.
Yeah, but we did an indefinite table of the expansion, so.
Right.
So is it the case that is there a way to peel those back for what Supervisor Hung's alluding to, and to figure out what that would be without them in those?
Yeah, I mean, those line items could be left alone. They were budgeted there in case we had to hire for the intake area. But if that's been tabled, without knowing how long it's going to be tabled for, if we ever get there. So I think that's a decision you have to make, whether you want to budget it now or.
I would say, given the timeline, even if we discovered in 2 months that this would have to, I think it gets pushed so far out into, by the time you build, hire, train, that I would recommend that we not include it.
I would agree because, we weren't really excited about the mid-year prospect, and I don't think we would mid-year in the future as well.
It's understandable.
But if it is going to happen, it should be in the budget. But if it's not a sure thing, then.
And this budget was prepared before.
Right. I know.
The intake.
Right.
So that's another 39,000 or what?
16,000, I believe, off of those three combined, down to the FY18 numbers, unless there's a reason to.
No. Yeah, you can see where we're at right now, and we're fine in those line items right now. So.
The safety apparel, are you on pace to go higher than budgeted?
I don't believe so. Looks like we're pretty close, aren't we, Dennis, right?
Safety apparel.
Safety, yeah.
That's
2940.
yeah.
Where are we at now? These are old.
You were at $15,022 right now.
With 5 months to go.
Do you spend that in regularity?
Not really. No.
So is that pretty much you've spent what you're going to spend?
Winter clothing is much more expensive than summer clothing, if that gives you any indication as to where we're.
Would it be acceptable to go to like FY16 numbers? Or, I mean, if you're at 15 right now and you want a little room, unless you think there's no more spending that's going to be done out of that line item. And
There will be. It may slightly exceed our current budget of 20.
So we could do about a 5% increase, put it at 21.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
What about the School of Instruction? Looks like that's way, is it certain days of the year you do the School of Instruction?
No, that can vary. Trying to, where we at here? You can see what we spent the 16 and 17 and what we were budgeted for. I think that was something we agreed on last year just to see. I think we probably already exceeded that line item this year. Correct?
Where are we at there, Dennis, on 4220?
You were at 8,861, so it's the same. Same number.
Was it a matter more of, compared to FY17, twice as many officers going, or twice as frequently, or?
There was a reason why it was so high in 16, and I can't recall off the top of my head, but so I think the 17 numbers are much more realistic.
You had a big turnover.
Yeah.
You had one or two, so there was a lot of people going to the classes. That's why it's very high back in 16 and why it's high in 17.
Do we cover 100% of the classes, or is it a?
It depends. We a lot of times we attempt to find classes that are the least costly, free training, but then there are certain things that we have to pay for. We can't get around some of the training. There's a cost to it.
What would you say you need next year? If you don't have the 8 new hires, is it 12 or something like that?
I would say 12, yeah, 12 to 13. It's like everything, even the cost of the training's going up, cost of fuel's going up, cost of cars going up.
Where were we at on fuel for most of the city or county budget? Because I just read a report on projections for the end of the year to be at $3 a gallon. So.
Well, gas and oil is actually out of the administration budget,
Okay,
which you already approved.
sure.
The gas is going up, it's $2.65, I saw today.
It's based off production numbers. This is just what was read as projected, $3 by the end of the year.
And then how about for 4460? Just dropping that down to like 9 or 10 realistic.
Please, yes, be realistic.
Okay, let's go through this again. So we changed the several times. 51,000 on line 2915. We're 3,000 down on 2940. We are at 4220. What are we going down now?
3,000.
3,000. And then 4460.
4,000.
4,000 down. Okay.
So we're going down another 10, so we're going to go down 72,960. You know, would it make it cleaner to just rescind the previous motions and make a new one, rather than vote on 2 amendments?
As long as you got the motion out there, you just agree to the amounts you're going to reduce the budget by.
All right.
Any other questions?
So, motion to receive minus 72,960.
Second.
Motion by Radig. Second by Mr. Ed. Or Jeremy Taylor, sorry.
No respect at home either.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Oh, that nice quick one before the attorney there.
Watching TV?
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
I got it. I'm slow.
County Attorney A1, page 3 to 5.
Thank you again, gentlemen. Appreciate you having us. Most of you have been through this. Some of you haven't, I guess. We're basically opening it up for questions. We try again, like we always do, to streamline our costs. There's some that just are naturally going to have to increase. Others we just absorb them as they come. Most of these costs are going to be personnel costs, which we can't do a lot about, as well as the costs that the board has agreed to per union contract. So. The one thing I do want to point out that's not, I don't believe anyway, mentioned in these numbers yet, is the new employee, the part-time employee that the board has agreed to hire that's part of the VOCA grant. I don't think those numbers are reflected in this at all.
That's a grant.
Yes.
100% reimbursable.
Yes. I mean, it's not going to, right,
Changing.
right.
It's all reimbursable. We'll eventually get the numbers in the required division of where we're going to go.
Correct.
Sure.
On page 4. Is that the 8862? Is that essentially doubling for bringing on new attorneys or others? Seems higher than
Yes, higher. Yeah. That might have been an error on my end. Because we agreed to, that's the parking for the attorneys. So whatever it is, it's the $38.25 a month per attorney, and then PJ's 600, so it's probably closer to the 5,000.
Good catch.
Take 3862 off.
Yeah.
What line item was that?
4136
4136.
on page 4.
I didn't have anything on page 4.
Well, page 4 down here. Yeah.
Oh, that's auditor. Right, something's not right.
What's a kangaroo duplicating system?
What the kangaroo duplicating system does is we get so many right now, different stuff from law enforcement between their car cam, body cams, surveillance, propriety surveillance that's out on the stores. And what we have to do is we have to copy all that for defense attorneys. And it's getting to be a little over the top. So we need to replace our duplicators with ones that have more capability to do more at the same time. Otherwise, we're just spending hours on end.
They're just a system that will the original disk into the machine, and then it duplicates on disks the material that was on the original disk.
Can't do without it.
No. Right now, we're using our computers plus the kangaroos that we do have at the same time.
Just quit giving it to the defense attorneys. They know.
Well, there goes our jail expansion.
I want to say too that I am going through all these budgets. I'm partially through. I'm taking all these zeros out. So I can talk on that. Get them all out so they won't show. It's getting there.
So we talked about parking going down to 5,000?
Yes.
Okay.
So it'd be a motion to receive minus 3862,
I'll second.
3,862 for clarification.
Motion by Radig, second by Ung, to receive minus $3,862. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carries 5-0. Item A2, page 7.
That's 100% reimbursable. It's a federal attorney grant.
I'll move to receive.
I'll second that. Motion by Ung. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Carries 5-0.
And just so you guys know, I got a phone call from the U.S. Attorney's Office. They're expecting to fill a vacant U.S. Attorney position with one of these two individuals. And so they will be coming back to me, you guys, to ask to repeat the fill for that second one. Again, it'll be 100%, but we have to authorize the position. So
Any timeline on that?
they wanted me to do it now, but I told them I need to wait till after we do this budget process before I hire some of them, because I didn't know what you guys were going to do to me. So got to think about me first, right?
Item A3, page 9.
This is a reimbursement also to a certain percent, and that percent is a reverting grant.
It's supposed to be 75%.
Okay.
We match it at 25%.
Okay.
So out of the 100%, they were supposed to supply the 75, we supply the 25. As any federal grant, it's gone down. And it's gone down significantly this year. So it's a position that we have to have as our drug prosecutor. Her workload is tremendous. She works primarily one-on-one with those task force officers in this position that we really just cannot afford to lose.
The good news here, if you go back to page 8, we did not have a number in there for the grant, so we're going to add that. That'll reduce the budget, our tax asking by another $78,630.
But at some point, like I said, we're going to be coming back asking you guys to fund this thing at 100%. I mean, it's just inevitable.
But Dennis, at minus 78, that's if they fund it 75%.
Yes.
And he's just saying, look,
And then when he comes back to fund it, that's going to be a decision of the board. Do we fund grants after they're done? That's been a big question mark.
but I'm saying right now, they're not funding at 75%.
Actual dollars are not coming in at 75%.
Then what would you like us to put in for revenue?
Because that'll make a big difference.
70, 65?
Well, the sheriff's office has the same problem because we share this money. So this is for the burn grant, Jade grant for drugs.
Right.
And if you look at our numbers that we have here, we need this position, otherwise we don't be able to.
We're just trying to get a handle on what percentage they're actually funding it.
And that's what I need to talk to the sheriff's office about too, because I got to see where they're coming in, how much money they're getting reimbursed as well.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't get a whole lot of cooperation when it comes down to federal government pinpointing on this grant. The grant's been running for over 20 years. I would say it's probably closer to 40, 60, and 60 be in the county.
That's a big
So if I
difference.
plug in 40%?
Well, I wouldn't plug in anything until we can, still
I
trying to
need
get
to plug in something because
definite numbers from
Board's
the
policy
feds.
is if we don't have, if it's a grant, we don't fund it again. That's the board's policy. So that's going to be a question mark. We need to put something in there eventually. Can you come back with a number? So we reduce the tax
Yes.
asking by, because this isn't going to be a 100% grant now, or else there's another discussion to be had.
No, it's never been a 100% grant.
No, but it could eventually be.
He means 100 us.
Be 100% county. And that comes back to another problem. We've got that problem already with another department. You just have to present your case, go from there.
It's going to depend on whether the police and the sheriff's office will continue to fund their positions that are grant funded through this grant. And if the law enforcement and police officers and deputies go away, then that would be a factor that we would be able to consider on this thing. But if the city continues to fund their officers who are part of this grant, and the sheriff's office funds their deputies who are part of this grant, then obviously we're going to have to take the workload that will be generated by those people.
And right now, this is shared between Sioux City PD, Sheriff's Office, and our office. So without definite numbers that I've been trying to get, I can't give you a definite number.
Right. And part of it, we don't know what the city was going to do, and if you're going to cut county attorney positions, it would mean that you would also need to cut a deputy or two positions that are also relying on this.
But of course, we're not advocating.
We're not advocating.
Crimes aren't going away. We just got to figure out the dollars. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
When you get more accurate numbers or percentages, you need to plug something in.
Right, and I understand that too. But like I said, I've been attempting
leave it
to
zero
work
for
with
now.
them.
And then come back with some numbers.
Does that mean we're going to table this one on 3?
Come at wrap up. Probably should bring the sheriff's line items at wrap up too.
But we just felt it's something that we needed to discuss this year because the numbers have dramatically reduced this year. And there's just no hiding it. So.
I know last year I didn't get funded for after, I believe, April. So we were getting $0, and that's when I really started to look at the grant again and see how much we were being reimbursed. And that's when I started asking more questions. And I'm just not, like I said, getting the answers that I'm looking for to give to you. But I am attempting to get those.
So it's affect you guys and the sheriff.
Yes.
Okay, then you come back then. Unwrap it.
So is it best just to see when you get the numbers rather than say next week?
Let me talk to the police department again and find out where we are at. Like I said, I've been pushing them to get me something in writing.
Do we need a motion to table this then?
No, I just direct him to bring it back and wrap up.
Okay.
We can receive it as is.
Yeah, receive it as, and we'll come back and review it again.
All right.
I'll move to receive.
I will second Radig's motion to receive. Yes. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item A4, Juvenile Division, 10 to 11.
Because basically it's all wages and health insurance.
Hospitalization really jumped. Was that a?
All that takes is one new attorney go single the family.
Okay.
That varies about 13,000.
Okay.
Which did happen.
On travel expenses, do you anticipate, do you have three attorneys that you're anticipating attending some training?
Mandatory training for the most part. I guess they can find it online and do it for free. A lot of them have been trying to do that.
We have had a lot of attorneys taking CLEs online webinars that have not been costing us our office anything, so that has helped. But we have to put that in there because it is mandatory training that they have to go to for the conferences if they don't get their CLEs somewhere else.
So the ones they're finding for no cost are not reliably there.
The King Gurus, are those in multiple lines or? We have
Yeah, that's
multiples
on
of-
the adult division and the juvenile division because we have run into the same issue up there where we're starting to copy a lot more multimedia.
Okay. I just didn't know if it was the same one or two different ones.
Different budget.
Okay.
And you guys have probably heard the numbers up there in juvenile are just exploding.
Which is why we get
Motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Juvenile Division passes 5-0. County Attorney Collections, page 13.
This has turned into a revenue-generating department. I can show you that by looking on page 12. We're estimating that based on what we're currently getting, taking that time divided by 5, taking by 12, come to 304,000, and they spend 198,000. So it's kind of doing what we anticipated it was going to do through diligence in the county attorney's office. It is generating additional revenue that we're using to help reduce taxation.
So there's a big jump in employee 1014.
They did add.
We added an attorney.
Okay.
We just have 2 support staff and half of an attorney coming out of that
When did we do that?
last year.
Yeah, last year.
Okay.
And actually, the budget probably should be potentially amended unless they have other line items to cover it. So you see it's 5 months or 54,000. That's reflecting the additional person that was hired, authorized to hire after the budget was set. But I just want to point out, going next year, and that's happening this year too, they're taking in a lot more than what they're spending,
Sure.
which makes our side very happy.
Wood move to receive.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Ung. Any other questions, comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Item 5 carries 5-0, Mr. Gill. Number 6, hit a grant number 2, page 15.
Money out, money in.
That's 100% covered.
I'll move to receive that.
I will second the motion by Radig. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Jury and witness fees, number 7, page 16.
Did I fill that out? I think I probably did.
What?
You guys filled it?
I did, yeah.
Okay, good.
I'll move to receive it.
Motion by Radig, second by DeWitt. Any other comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Pass 5-0. Item 8, county attorney forfeiture, page 19.
Non-tax, and that's money comes in, the county attorney has specific things they can spend it on. If you want to detail what it's going to
We really haven't spent any. We're expecting to spend some on the remodel of the fourth floor, and a few other things going forward. We're looking at doing some specific training with some of the attorneys, such as, abusive head trauma, going to specific training just for that, sexual assault specific training, that kind of thing. So far, we've been really frugal with what we do with those dollars.
What about the kangaroo thing? Would that be funded with that?
The rules say that you aren't supposed to fund regularly supported items, for lack of a better description. So these are the types of things that the county is supposed to be supplying to us. So we aren't supposed to fund that. If the county were to be low on money or just absolutely had no other funds, and we absolutely needed that, we could purchase it. We aren't able to show that at this point.
The regulation is that if the board would start to use those to fund regular items, that we would have to give the money instead of to those items, we would have to give it to the Attorney General's office.
So if we did biannual training instead of annual training?
Yeah, there's certain training that would be expected. What we could use the forfeiture funds for is for something that would be beyond what we would normally do. And should we get to the point where we're spending it for what we would consider to be routine items that should be budgeted through tax dollars, then we would have to give the forfeiture funds to the Attorney General's office.
We wouldn't have to, but they start asking questions. It might force us to.
Yeah.
And this is actually on hand.
It's
What's that?
Actually, money's on hand in their.
So there's 94,000 on hand? Okay.
I'll second your motion.
Who made the motion?
I moved to, or you moved to receive. Whoever did.
Motion by Ung, second by Radig. Questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. County fine collections, page 21, please.
This is a new fund, there's money going into it, at the discretion of the county attorney to explain this one. This is a new fund this year.
Last year.
Last year, yeah, it's continuing forward.
Right. These are funds where once we started meeting our threshold amount, then the county starts getting a share, or the county attorney's office starts getting a share, not from what the county receives, but from the part that we give back to the state. So that's what that fund is. Which is why those ladies work so hard to make sure we top that number.
So after we meet the threshold, the state actually gives us some of
They
their
don't
share?
want to. Every year it comes
But
up.
they do.
Yeah.
It's amazing in itself.
The only thing they did was, last year, I believe, they dropped the percentage for the county as a whole. They increased theirs, so when we take it from them, they're still kind of.
I'll move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Potabom, second by Radig to receive. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Relatively painless.
What's that?
Relatively painless.
Not yet. We still out there with that drug prosecutor.
Next is budget review, item B, discussion action of wage plan salaries.
Okay, on this one, we always plug in every year a certain dollar amount, so we're facing, what realistic it would be there, so we don't move the budget up and down so much. So this year, we had talked to the former chair and had some discussions there a little bit between Michelle and Matthew. And last year we had budgeted for the current year we had budgeted 3%. We did drop that down to 2.75. So that is what we put in for this year, 2.75. That includes all your department heads and anybody under wage plan. Now, it should be explained too that when we add these all together, Michelle, did you have a sheet there? Yeah. When we come through it all together, and this includes hospitalization, we're actually down $120,489 with 2.75 plugged in. That's because we've had reorganization and various positions have been deauthorized. So actually, bye, Rocky.
Chair's going down there.
Chairs went down. This kind of gives you an idea by department. And it should be stated too also, this 2.75 is the overall increase. We do have some wage plan employees that maybe Michelle can identify, groups, that even though they're wage plan, they get a % increase for life versus 2.75, and also they file the ASME contract and they get step increases also. There's only a certain portion to do that. Most of your wage plan do not get step increases. It's just a flat 2.75. But there are a few that do follow the wage or the ASME contract for step increases.
Yes, sir.
So what is the net result after the authorization? Is that reflected both in our tax asking rates?
Yes, that we're adjusting as we go along, and there'll probably be some more when we get juvenile detention actually approved. You know, he came with information, so it'll keep going down. But right now, the way Michelle has it here, you can go to the back page. We have $4,416,708 budgeted now. Next year, we have $4,483,000, so it's actual increase, not decrease there. It's actual increase of a little bit. Approximately 70,000, 67,000. But that does include health insurance also, that we probably be rolling back.
This is based on when we rolled it into the operating budget, so actually these figures do not include some of the changes. Ed was still here and Melissa was still in her former position, so that wouldn't be included in these numbers, so it's going to reduce this amount a little bit. Also, the wage plan, I believe that juvenile detention would reduce this a little bit also based on what happened last week. Those changes are made after we roll it into the operating budget, so this is just based on what we rolled over around October.
I would like to see the county do what we've done in the past, and I've talked to Melissa about this as far as a wage study on a periodic basis, not just having a one-off like we did 4 years ago. And then we reach the, agreed upon rate for each position. And now we're sort of just automatically approving across the board, notwithstanding the differences in different positions, how they might have changed up or down. I think it's responsible for us to, try and program in some sort of a periodic wage study. Right, like a matrix. Because we're moving towards some element of performance evaluations with directors, and I think overall, at least some aspect of that should go into wage plan.
We were doing that, but like you say, it hasn't been updated for several years, so it'd probably be a good idea.
We have a matrix that goes through 1920 fiscal year. However, that was based on anticipated increases, and some other items, and there's been a lot of changes since this was done. So it probably would benefit the county to update this.
I'm not a big fan of wage studies, though, blanketly especially. I think if we are having issues with a certain position, then we look at that position more so.
Is there a cost associated with these studies, or is that done, you want it in-house?
What was the case?
You can get the information from different counties, everybody's real cooperative, we work all together on that, so.
I think it can be done in-house.
Sure.
Well, the reason I say that is because typically our market area is not the same as the rest of the state.
Well, I'd like to think that we're aware of that when we receive the package too, but.
Sure.
Well, one department's in the process of doing this right now, EMS. Is comparing, get comparables, things like that. If you move from this stage to this stage, should there be additional, increases? We haven't done it for all the other departments.
Well,
And I think that's what Matthew is suggesting we should
right.
do for all of them.
I mean, the idea of a good wage study is that it takes into account those local issues as well. It doesn't just average whatever. You have some local input too. And, I agree with Supervisor Radig, on that extreme, but I also don't like the exact opposite of just automatic increases without any sort of, respect to the differences. So I think there's just a periodic, I think, is good for us to, yeah.
My only question is on this. On the back page, I'm just looking at every line at the bottom. It takes an account of the first two columns, and it comes up with a difference. And you may have stated this, and I apologize if you have, but it looks like at the end, you are alluding to Dennis, it's 67, roughly, thousand more this year than it was last year?
Right, it's just, she had a formula there, she acknowledged that.
Oh, okay, yeah, gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
So it's a decrease of what over last year?
It's actually an increase because the formula here is wrong.
Okay.
It's about 67,000 up, which includes health insurance and the 2.75. And an increase in IPERS, a little bit increase there.
With 5% health insurance?
Yes. Yep.
Which
we're going to address that next week.
We'll address.
Yep.
And we're able to vote on that next week?
On the health, yes.
Yeah.
Anticipating action. Yep.
Any other questions for Dennis?
Anything else you have to add?
Oh, that's it. It's an action item
Action item next week.
this week.
Oh, this week.
That's actually listed
Next
here.
week is the hospital or health insurance.
Yeah, special action this week.
So you're looking for action at the 2.75%?
But
You're looking for
Yeah.
a motion to approve
set
it?
that at 2.75.
I would make that motion for 2.75.
What did we have for the unions in this year?
Unions were, they vary, 2.5 for attorney, 2.5 courthouse, 2.5 juvenile detention, secondary roads 2.5, sheriff 2.75, jailers 3%. And they get step increases, which wage plan does not.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Taylor. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Passes 4-1 with Supervisor Radig against. Thank you. Mr. Glazer, Economic Development, page 4 to 7.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. This will be the second fiscal year with combined departments with former departments, Planning and Zoning and Rural Economic Development. I went ahead and took the liberty of combing through the combined budgets this year and made a 20% reduction out of operating expenses. There were a few quirks with the combination of the two budgets, last year being the first year. So there were some expenses that maybe weren't in the appropriate category, but I put them where I think they should belong, and answer any questions that you may have. I would defer the other charges on drainage and taxes. Any questions on that to Dennis? 4921. It's the drainage taxes.
We still already paid that for what we have paid this year.
Oh, it's for just county-owned parcels, and they just stuck it in your budget? Because these aren't spec parcels, these would be parcels we have to own, I guess.
When I put it together and I asked, I was advised to just leave it.
On the first page, what's miscellaneous officers?
So on the that is the $10 per person stipend that the Board of Adjustment and Zoning Commission members receive.
Okay.
For some reason, it wasn't. I think it was actually. I think it was being categorized under employee mileage or in the communication and trans services section. But I looked at former Director Palolo's budget in fiscal year 16 and made an estimate based off of that year's budget, which was $650. The prior year actual was $670, and I guess I just anticipated a couple more extra meetings this year.
David, school instruction, 4220. That real cost you for 2,500 roughly.
Yes, I try to use the most conservative figures when putting together professional development opportunities as far as like ISAC. I do want to get our new zoning coordinator the certified floodplain manager certificate. So there's some new expenses that weren't in the previous budget.
As you those zeros, they were somewhere. The school of instruction was somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis, currently this is being funded local option sales tax.
Yes, that's one of our decisions. Anytime that we would say we're using the same funding we have used in the past several years and fund the whole department with local option sales tax.
I make a motion to do so and to receive this budget.
Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by Young, to receive the budget.
Thank you.
Questions? Very good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Thanks, Mr. Glazer. Can we start the meeting a minute early, Mr. Auditor? And forego any. Yeah. We'll call this regular meeting to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in a moment of silence. We had a loss today at the county level. We ask that you remember the family in the prayers, please. Thank you. Please remember to silence cell phones, pagers, devices like that. Do we have any citizen concerns? Hearing none. Item 4, approval of the agenda.
I'd move approval, Mr. Chair.
I will second that motion by Mr. Taylor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Carries 5-0. Next, we have the consent agenda. Items 5 through 7 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Number 5, approval of the minutes of the January 23rd, 2018 meeting. Item 6, approval of claims. Item 7, human resources, approval of memorandum of personnel transactions. I will move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Ung to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. We are plenty of time. Secondary roads. Information item from Mr. Nera, please. You're going to bring us up to date on the Plywood Trail.
Well, I'll at least let Jeff Shug do that. So,
Okay.
He is with McClure Engineering and working on the project on behalf of the trail planners.
Okay.
Thank you. Since we came on board, we've been evaluating the options for alignment for the trail between Lamar's and Sioux City. The first thing that we did is held a series of public meetings to gather some input. Out of that came a couple of routes that ended up being included in the 3 routes that we are analyzing now and just finishing up. One we called a county roads route, where the trail would come down the highway to Merrill and then go west and utilize county roads to go north-south to Hinton before it came back into the highway right-of-way and went into Sioux City to the connection point where they're building the trail out to the city limits. The second route is the Highway 75 route, is what we refer to it as, where the trail would be essentially in the right-of-way of Highway 75 coming down from Lamar's to Sioux City to that connection point. And then we have what we call the river route, where we're evaluating the possibility of being able to route that trail essentially up against the river on the backsides of properties down into Sioux City. So a lot of landowner discussions. As you may or may not know, you cannot condemn ground for a trail, only for roads. So a trail has to have willing landowners in order for easements to be gained or ground to be purchased for the alignment of the trail. So we're just in the process, be finishing up by the end of this week, discussing with various landowners the possibility of utilizing their ground for either the river route or some areas on the county roads route where we're going to need easements just because of the grade separation between the road and the ground that's next to it. So we're anticipating wrapping that up this week, and then the plan is to meet with the Plywood Trail Committee, who's kind of operating this, making a final determination, and then there's going to be a series of meetings next week. So we'll start with the City of Lamar's at their council meeting at noon on Tuesday, February 6th. Would be the first meeting. The second would be in Lamar's later that night. It would be an informational meeting for the public between 5 and 6 p.m. on Tuesday, February 6th. And then we'd finish up in Hinton the next day from 7 to 8 p.m. with a public meeting on Wednesday, February 7th. And so that will kind of finalize the paring down of the routes, if you will, to get down to the one route that we think will be viable moving forward from that point. So I'd entertain any questions.
I heard there's some resistance from the Highway 75 property owners.
There's resistance from property owners on all 3 routes.
Is there? Okay. Was it worse on the Highway 75 route?
I think that they were more vocal only because it had been perceived until the point that we got involved that it was going to be the highway route, that was it. Nothing else was going to be evaluated. So that's why we went through this process of evaluating different routes, is to see if that's going to be any more or less viable than the other routes that we picked in that preliminary stage.
Okay.
But, I mean, there's definitely supporters and there's definitely detractors, as with any large-scale project that happens.
Everybody good? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Secondary roads, item B, consider approval of completion certificate for hot mix asphalt levelers project for 2017.
Knife River Midwest had done some work for us with some areas where we had either had bridge settlement over culverts, or other road defects. They completed that patching work for us as of November 27th, 2017. I recommend approval of the certificate of completion.
So moved.
Motion by Young, second by DeWitt to approve, or to approve the approval of completion certificate. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item C, consider approval of completion certificate for PCC patching for 2017.
Similarly, we had hired 10 Point Construction, who was the successful low bidder on a concrete, Portland Cement concrete patching project. They took care of a number of concrete blow-ups and other areas where we had pavement deterioration. They completed that work by November 15th, 2017. I recommend approval of the certificate of completion for the project.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Young, second by Radig. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Pass 5-0. Item D, consider approval of an amendment to project agreement 11-1 with the Hungry Canyons Alliance for a stream stabilization project.
Project 11-1 involves a project that was let by the Board of Supervisors as County Project C-07. This is a project that's putting stream bed elevation stabilization with a drop inlet on the upstream side and some work also on the downstream side of the structure. Hungry Canyons is assisting in the cost of that project. I know it's on your information sheet, but I think it was about a $168,000 project, and this is a $30,000 grant to cover the cost of the erosion control and stream bed stabilization measures being taken on the project. Recommend, what this is doing is giving us till December 31, 2018 to complete the work. We let the work in 2017. The contractor had a late start date of April 1, so the work will be done this summer.
I will move approval.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
There's one copy of the completion certificates and 2 copies of the amendment for signature by the chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Let's see, we're not to 4:45 yet. Let's move on to item 10, Community and Economic Development. David Gleiser, approval to transfer ownership of the Sioux City Sioux trademark to the City of Sioux City and require the city to reimburse the county for any costs associated with preparing and filing assignment with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office.
Thank you, David Gleiser, Director of Community Economic Development. Supervisor, I want to provide you with an update on the county-owned trademark, Sioux City Sioux, as well as provide you with my recommendation on its future use and ownership. I have also here in the audience Mr. Rick Mock with the City of Sioux City out of the City Manager's Office. He's here to speak about some of the plans that we've recently come up with. Back in 2007, the county successfully trademarked Sioux City Sioux as a standard character mark, so just the actual lettering, with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. And its intended use was to promote local organic local organic food production. At one time, Woodbury County was pursuing to establish a brand name and be sort of an umbrella brand that local producers could market, get their locally produced organic foods to market and be put in stores under the Sioux City Sioux brand name. That concept never took off. My department is actually the department that is the registrant for that trademark. It's up for renewal here on February 21st. I have no use for it going forward in the future. As I'm sure you know, the city of Sioux City has recently had discussions about painting the water tower in Singing Hills with some sort of reference to the Sioux City Sioux song from the 1940s. I guess my recommendation is to enter into some sort of agreement with the city where they would take over the ownership. The cost to renew the trademark, I believe, is $825. The cost to transfer the assignment of ownership is roughly between $300 to $400. That's with legal fees, with the patent attorney that helped Woodbury County establish this trademark. And the sooner that, if we can get this the ownership transferred before it expires, the cost would be a lot less. And if the city would be interested in taking over the ownership, obviously their cost would be reduced. Mr. Mock would like to show the board some of the renderings on the artwork and lettering details of the tower. If you'd be so entertained to take a look at them.
I would be so entertained.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Rick Mock with City of Sioux City, City Manager's Office. As you may well be aware, lengthy discussions about trying to get some kind of recognition for Sioux City on one of our water towers. We're in the rotation of repainting all of them, Singing Hills being the last tower that will need painting. And with the addition of Cone Park, the proximity to Highway 75 and to the interstate, it's a good location to do something. A committee was formed, Cindy Wade and Council Person Kate Brown and myself and Avery's, and came up with several ideas we presented to Council, and ultimately we played on the theme of Singing Hills and played on the history of Sioux City, was home of Sioux City Sioux. Attempted to get the rights for the song and are having nothing but roadblocks from the owners of that, so I've been in conversation with Mr. Gleiser, and this seems like a good solution, and we can put that name to use and make it something that people can see from the interstate, from the shopping malls, and hopefully we can come to reasonable terms with you.
The only thing that, pardon me.
No, you can.
The only thing I would like to have is first right of refusal if you ever decided to give it up, or, you know, I don't know why we would use it, but since
15 years from now,
we are home to Sioux City, we'd like to be, I think it would be important to have the first right.
Sure. We'd have no problem with that at all.
David, that logo that you had, is that part of this trademark, that graphic rendering, and that was just somebody's?
Yeah, that was.
That actually looks pretty cool, I think.
It is. It's a beautiful design, but the actual trademark is the standard character mark with just the type lettering. So.
Rick, did you get all the money raised on that? Weren't they raising money for that?
Rhonda was in charge of that, and I'm not quite sure where she's at for funding, but we got excellent bids on the tank work, so we got more than plenty of cash available to do the painting. And both the entire tank painting itself, the base cost, was very low, and then the alternate to put on the lettering and the music notes was reasonable as well. Under proposal.
What was the difference to add the letters?
About on the lettering itself, hang on, I do have that answer. Okay, alternate one was for just putting Sioux City, and that was $3,800. And if we do it on 3 sides, that's about $14,000. And if we put the music notes on, then that's an additional $12,000. Wrap the notes around it.
So 37-ish.
Yeah, 26.
Okay.
Just for point of interest, Mr. Gleiser, Mr. Mock, we are at a set time of 4:45 for an item. If you guys would take
Well,
a seat for
I'll
a
go ahead
minute.
and move that we do that.
So?
I'll second.
Motion by Radig, second by Potabom. And do I need to add the first right of refusal request in there in any way?
I'll put it in.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Sheriff's Office.
Todd Wick, Sheriff's Office.
So, in a public hearing then?
We are in a public hearing at 4:45 to, I lost my paperwork. There it is.
The first reading.
Public hearing and first reading for county ordinance allowing the Woodbury County Sheriff's Office to waive residency requirements for reserve peace officers.
First time doing this, gentlemen. You want to give me some direction here?
We're waiting for all the citizens to come out and give us their input.
Normally there's a little dance and then
Sheriff's Office is in favor of this?
Pardon me?
Sheriff's Office is in favor of this, I take it?
Yes.
How many people have we had looking from out of state?
We've got a waiver right now because we had one that came from Wayne. He was a student there, but he has since moved to Sioux City, and now he's a resident here. So, but we're just taking applications now, and I believe we have 2 in the application pool that are from Nebraska.
And this is a 3-reading type item, is that correct? Do we have the ability to waive a second and third reading?
Technically, yes, but we don't have that on the agenda to do that. And we typically don't unless there's some sort of emergency type situation. I don't think we're on a timeline for that, so we'll have Todd come back 2 more times.
Is there anybody opposed to this in the audience tonight?
Well, hearing none, Mr. Chair, I move that the public hearing be closed.
I will second that. Motion by Mr. Taylor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Do we need to move to approve the reading?
Second.
I'll move to approve the first reading.
Okay.
We close the public hearing.
Motion by Ung, second by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Am I supposed to give the public reading? Item 11. Building Services, Kenny Schmitz.
Now, the item before you is a request to reallocate CIP funding. Since we have decided not to move forward with some of the LEC projects, we have approximately $878,000 available that we could utilize for other projects rather than borrowing in future CIP years for money toward those projects. And so my request today is to reallocate a portion of those funds from CIP B13-17 to be used for other projects. And I've identified actually the Trosper-Hoyt Master Control and Security Electronics and Elevator project for one project we certainly could reutilize those funds for. I've discussed this with our finance director. He believes it makes good sense rather than to continue to borrow in future CIP when we have some money that's already allocated that we could use.
What brand is do you know what brand the equipment is on this, Kenny? This on the master control stuff? I'm asking because I got wind that there might have been some trouble with this same stuff that was installed years ago, 4 years ago.
I've got Kevin Ross with GGA here who can assist with your question. I think some of it is Modicon.
Yeah, I have to go back and take a look. I assume you're asking about the company that installed it, which I believe was Accurate Controls. They're at the LEC, what, 4 or 5 years ago, somewhere around there.
What company?
Accurate Controls Incorporated. They did a replacement underneath Cornerstone. They were sub-consultant of Cornerstone Detention back when they had the remodel project and stuff there, which revamped the security electronics system. I'd have to go back and look to see what exact equipment was put on that one. I know in talking to the folks at the Sheriff's Department through the whole process of the master plan and the multiple projects we looked at, I wasn't aware of any hardware issues as opposed to maybe there was some issues with the source codes and stuff like that, which were being held up. I think part of that had to do with Cornerstone, the detention contractor, and I know if there is any issues there, if there's still any issues there, we'd like to know about it and have them rectify that while they're here in town.
And I didn't get enough information to see if it was.
So the project that you're referring to, the UPSs, which were very expensive, failed almost right away. They were made to replace them, but there was a bunch of finger pointing as far as who caused the failure. Ultimately, at the end, you got new UPSs that were replaced. It wasn't the main control boards that went out, from my understanding of what I learned back when we're working through the intake. It was the UPSs that powered all that stuff. You have a series of 4 of them that's in the closet. That's what it failed in. They had trouble with that hardware.
Okay. But those were all replaced?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
So Kenny, originally 2017 CIP B13-17 is all coming from where?
Is all coming from the LEC intake project.
And then at one point we had said to look at different projects that could be potentially, rerouted for lack of a better term. Is that something that by taking this action is or is not a potential?
Yes, absolutely. This is in direct correlation with that.
Okay.
I'll move 11A.
Second.
Motion by Radig, second by Ung, to approve reallocate a portion of the 2017 CIP funds necessary to capture project expenses for Trosper-Hoyt Master Control Security Electronics and Elevator Project. Questions, concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item B, approve Trosper-Hoyt Master Control Security Electronics and Elevator Project.
The item before you, again, is an action item. This is to approve the Trosper-Hoyt Master Control Security Electronics and Elevator Project. We received what we consider for favorable bids back on the project. During that time, we had a failure of the security digital recording equipment at Trosper Hoyt. Actually, last week. And so we have had an equipment failure there now, so the timing of this project is very, very good. As you know, we've previously had failures associated with the elevators and outdated parts and the unavailability of those parts and replacement parts. And so we were lucky in that we did contact Accurate Controls. They're one of the bidders for the master control project. They agreed to let us use a loaner DVR. They were also informed at that time that the board here had not decided on a bidder for the project or even if the project would be approved. But they were positively assisting us in helping us out in a tough situation. It was a nice gesture for them, to let us know that they want to work with the county. I did, or Ryan actually, with the Trosper Hoyt detention, did get pricing for replacement DVRs. Those replacement DVRs are just shy of $17,000. There's two of them. Again, one failed, so to replace one of those, that gives you an idea what the cost of one of those is. I've got Kevin Rost here again. Kevin, if you'd like to come up and explain briefly some of the bids and the process we went through.
Sure. As you know, we bid this project previously with a different scope, and bids were not very favorable. We decided to rescope and rebid the project. We received bids in three categories. I believe we explained here a couple weeks ago. The Schumacher elevator for the elevator replacement portion, one from Rasmussen for the mechanical electrical portion of the work, and one from Accurate Controls for the security electronics replacement. I think a lot of the bid numbers come in favorable. There was a little bit of a jump from the previous quotes I know Kenny got on the elevator replacement. There was a little bit added scope to that work as well too.
What was the added scope?
The integration with the security electronics system. Prior bids were just straight up elevator replacement and rehab.
What is the alternate two?
The alternate two on the elevator scope of work was for a 5-year service contract, inclusive of all parts, inspections, testing, etc. And I believe we did confirm that was for both elevators on that, which I think was roughly half the cost of what you guys were paying that.
So is that per year or for 5 years?
$400 per year for a duration of 5 years.
Sorry. Yeah, $400 per month for 5 years. That's, again, as Kevin said, that's currently half of what we're paying for the maintenance contract on those elevators.
I liked the better one. I thought it was $400 a year.
I misspoke. I apologize. But yeah, I think given all considerations, I think we've had conversations with all the contractors involved in bidding the project, and everybody feels comfortable with their bid, and all scopes have been included in their bids. So.
Alternate one on Accurate Controls?
That was for the millwork or the cabinetry there at Master Control, along with the flooring that would need to be redone if that millwork was to be tore up, and then repainting of the Master Control in there.
Where is that at in the building?
4th floor, right as you walk through the second detention door, going into where they have the
Where they have their bench and all this stuff?
Yeah, it's in pretty rough shape, but we'd like to have, unfortunately, funds to do more work there, but that's what we had, and that's what we're able to fit within the scope of this work.
Did I understand correctly that there was just one bid for each of the different projects?
Correct.
Do we know why that was?
Just lack of participation, I assume. I know we had multiple contractors we had talked with during the bid process, and it come bid day, only one of them bid for each category. So I don't know, I haven't contacted some of the guys that we had spoke with during that questions about the project and found out why they did not bid. I just know they did not turn in a bid on bid.
We've had that before, where we've only gotten one bidder.
We have.
This is a tight timeline, right?
Very
It
good.
is.
Well, that's why.
I know when we previously did this project, I think we had just one bidder turn in a bid at that time, as well too, when it was just under a general contractor's scope of work. Like Nelson Contracting was the only contractor to turn in, unfortunately. So.
We opened it up, we had a pre-bid meeting to try to get a feel for Josh, what we were gonna have. We had 2 electricals at the pre-bid, only 1 mechanical at the pre-bid. We had 12 people at the pre-bid total. So, I mean, we had quite a bit of participation. We opened it up so Otis could bid, Tyson Krupp could bid as an elevator, as well as Schumacher. Schumacher kind of knows the building better than anybody else because they're currently in there doing the service contracts at the other buildings. So Schumacher wanted to make sure they bid on it. I don't understand why Otis doesn't bid. It's an Otis elevator, but you had the same problem over here at the courthouse that Otis didn't bid as well. Security electronics, we had 3 different groups that were trying to get all in there. At the end of the day, we had 1 person turning in Brad. So there was multiple people participating, just they didn't turn in bids at the end of the day, so that's what we had. But we were all within our budgets, and this was kind of about where we thought we would be at.
So with your pre-bid meetings and all, nobody thought they were going to be the only bidder starting?
That is exactly correct. And we had Thompson and Metro both had the thing for electricals, you know, so I mean, we were getting good participation.
I'll move approval.
Motion by Potabom.
I'll second it as much as I think we're getting ripped off.
Second by Radig to approve the Trosper Hoyt Master Control Security Electronics and Elevator Project. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reports on committee meetings. Sure.
Hey, Mr. Chair, just a couple. Supervisor Ung and I had a meeting today looking at the audio-visual tour for the Centennial, May 1st to 5th. He's working on some website development. I think some very exciting things that we'll be able to showcase and also to drum up some support as well as the historiography of restoration efforts that have gone on. And so we're very excited about that. I don't know if you wanted to add anything along those lines.
Summation.
Thank you. The other update I wanted to give was on the Rolling Hills region meeting that Chairman DeWitt and I had the privilege to attend. Very good, robust discussion, roughly 2.5 hours. The things that we were assuring them from Woodbury County's perspective is that I think it's a fair summation that we are willing to pay our own way. And by that I mean our per capita plus a 25% of reserve level and the utilization of some of the reserve that we would be walking away from Sioux Rivers with in order to meet a spending target of roughly $3.3 million. One of the concerns that a supervisor there shared was he wanted to make sure that we were not looking to be subsidized by their region, and went so far as to say amendment language could even be added to ensure that we don't spend more than we're levying and generating. I want to also thank Rolling Hills' governance board. I think they've taken a lot of time and are doing very good due diligence. They are looking ahead to March when they'll make a decision, but I'm appreciative that they have visited our crisis stabilization center. the Friendship House, met multiple times, and had that back and forth discussion. And again, hope like Cherokee County before us, that we can move into their region for roughly the same reasons that Cherokee moved previously. So the one other comment that I wanted to make and update you with is this. They have a very, very healthy reserve level at 92%, and they're shaving that down to 58%, and then the next fiscal year down to 25%. One of the worries is that if Woodbury County comes in and has shaved a lot of that down, that we'll be utilizing a benefit that has been contributed previously in yesteryear by their county taxpayers. One of the things that I'd like to see Rolling Hills consider is, at least for those first 2 years, that Woodbury County would not be able to buy down its per capita level by utilizing their reserves. Because in year 3, everybody's at an equal playing field. I think that's very, very reasonable. And so I'm just offering that in some communication, wanting to let you know that doesn't speak on behalf of this board. Obviously, that would need to come back. But I think that's a very reasonable accommodation.
Well, we've already benefited by spending our reserves down. So.
Right, exactly. So that's, I think, their main concern. And there's a few ways of tackling that. One would be that we would contribute to such a high level that we'd be at 92%. Well, we can't do that legally, and it doesn't make sense to build that way up and then to shed that the next year. The other thing that was offered at the meeting was they could shed their reserve completely in 1 year. And that has the same yo-yo effect that we complained about in Sioux Rivers. Yes, it would give us all parity after that first year, but they would be, it would be way down and way up. But it was brought up as a potential by one of the supervisors. So with that, I remain hopeful and continue to have discussions. So,
well, if any of them have a debt levy, just tell them to do what we did.
Follow suit.
On their potential budgets, how many things were actually a cut and how many things weren't? Because I know we had discussed the employment programs like NPI and Goodwill. Those were actually getting funded better through Rolling Hills, were they not?
Right. And so one of the things that we looked at is generally right now there's a spending target of $3.3 million based on what we would generate per capita, what we put into our budget at $28.50, which is currently in there, and what we could also come up with 25% reserves and utilizing some of those reserve levels as well. So we looked at some of those things that were potentials, and you're right, Supervisor Raddig, that an organization like NPI could do equally well, if not a little better. In fact, they have incentives for placement programs. And all of this, I think we need to be careful about, is ultimately a decision of that governance board, along with our county. But generally speaking, some of the doom and gloom, as we've alluded to, those cuts are coming either way.
Absolutely.
With the Sioux Rivers or...
Well, we've gotten our potential budget from Sioux Rivers, and the other big concern I had was the $500,000 projected revenue that Sioux Rivers puts in there. Does Rolling Hills put that in there, or are they being more realistic about that?
We have looked at a potential of $465,000 coming off of the Crisis and Stabilization Center.
Correct. That's because we utilized one-time money of $500,000 this current year. And talking with Sioux Rivers CEO assistant up there, he still claims that February 1st we're going to start collecting money, which will affect our distribution, but also affect the rates next year. So it is calculated in there.
But I think the biggest thing as we get new numbers, because we did just, again, and I think this is version 6 now of projections from Sioux Rivers that have gone
all over.
Right. Is to have, what is the caveat to that? Are you relying on February 1st billable codes from the MCOs haven't been normally successful. So as long as that's...
Guess we'll know in a couple weeks.
Yeah, as long as it's an apples to apples comparison, I think that's fine. But, and I think the last thing I wanted to share with you all, and appreciate being able to go on a little bit, the question was, well, is Rolling Hills going to be the bad guy? You have these cuts coming. Think about this for a minute. We're looking to spend a target of $3.3 million. The maximum that you can generate in Sioux Rivers at 3049 is $3.1 million. So if there's anyone who is the bad guy, you are actually getting more spending authority, which can be spent on services, by being there. And so I said it's just going to mean we have to educate our public that we've been relying on reserve money and one-time funds to be able to spend way more than we're taking in. So... anything that you...
No, they're asking very substantial and healthy questions over there. There's no question about that. But and they should. Absolutely should. So.
I have one.
Sure.
Attended the Sioux City Conference Board budget meeting along with Supervisors Radig and Potabom. The board approved the budget recommendation, which is a tax rate decrease due in part to the spending down of reserves, accrued in part due to the open positions not being filled on the commercial appraiser and I believe another one. The decision was made to keep those in the budget in case they are filled. The public hearing for the budget is Valentine's Day.
That's sweet.
Now you have a place to take your wife.
Any reports?
I had all these Simcoe meetings the other day. The great acronym WICRTIF for that one.
WICRTIF?
Yeah, we still are needing some Woodbury County homes to be fixed up with the funding that we have in our area. We also had a nice presentation from the USDA talking about which cities that are within Woodbury County that could qualify for USDA community program grants or zero interest loans. And I guess maybe some of those I could meet with David Gleiser on economic development side, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 7 cities within Woodbury County that would qualify for pretty substantial grant funding through USDA if they needed a new, say, ambulance center or fire station or anything like that. It would be a great opportunity to build those buildings for them. Lawton is a 0%er. Sorry. They make too much money in Lawton.
Anybody else? We're done with reports on committee meetings. Any citizen concerns?
Connie Barron. Recently, Iowa DHS sent out Senate File 504 work group reports regarding complex service needs. The expectation is that we as a community will attempt to follow the recommendations to meet the needs of our population. As the region is expected to lead, and if they choose to have a work group, I felt that Mr. Radig, you would be a good addition to that work group. I've watched you and you ask good questions. I have that information and I'd like to share it with you. If you have the desire to read it, note anything that you have questions about, and we can call the state work group if we have questions. May I give it to you?
Sure. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We need to receive that since it only went to one member. Okay. Any other citizen concerns? Hearing none, any board concerns? We're adjourned.